Sean Baskey, know that you're here. Carrie Shifley.
Hi, I'm here.
Thank you, Carrie. Chelsea Ward-Waller. Ooh.
Good evening.
Hi, Chelsea. Dave Gamez.
I'm here.
Great. Emily Weiser.
Present.
Great. Carol Fink.
Here.
Awesome. Daryl, we know you're here. Travis Holmes.
Here.
Thank you. Jason Kuhn. Getting an external. I'm not sure if Jason's here or not, but he appears to be on. Joe Taylor.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, perfect. Was that Jason or Joe?
Oh, that's Jason. I'm present.
Okay.
Good
great.
evening. Good evening, Joni. Joe's here as well.
Okay, great. So both Jason Kuhn and Joe Taylor are here. Aaron Yanganalen.
Here.
Excellent. Katie Conway. Sorry, Sophie's here. It's my dog.
Good evening. This is Katie.
Hi, Katie. Thanks. Kristen Myers.
I'm here.
Excellent. Lindsay Hyduke.
Yep. Hi, everyone.
Hi, thank you. Craig, I know you're here. Morgan McCammon.
Hello, I'm here.
Great, thanks, Morgan. Scott L. is a guest.
I'm here. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Scott. James Starzak.
Present.
Awesome, thanks, James. And Stephen Noble.
Good evening, this is Steve. Thanks for recognizing me.
You bet. Thanks for joining us. And then last on my list is Susan, is it Atchison?
It's Susan Atchison.
Atchison, thank you for the pronunciation. Great. All right. I think that is everyone on my list.
All right, and it looks like we definitely have a quorum. Craig, could we get the public involvement announcement that you're so famous for?
After 18 some odd years, I should have this down pat, right? All AMATS committee meetings are open to the public. If we have a business item, we'll have a presentation by staff or the consultants. After that, the committee will be given a chance to discuss the matter, and then we'll offer the public an opportunity to comment. After the public has commented, we'll come back to the committee for discussion.
Thank you, Craig.
You bet.
Could I get a motion to approve the agenda?
This is Lindsay. I'll motion.
And can we
This
get a
is
second?
Carol. Carol will second.
Okay, I do have a couple of items I would like to add to the agenda. Under general information, I'd like to add a new item at the end of general information would be an update, I believe from Katie Conway, on the Spenard Road project. And I would also, under general information at the beginning, before the Northern Lights Boulevard, I would like to give Craig a few minutes. There's been a lot of emails flying around, a lot of conversation about what the BPAC is and what we do. So Craig is willing to give us the little 5-minute spiel, the kind of a reminder on what the BPAC is and what we what our role is. So if there's no objection, I would like to add those two agenda items. Seeing and hearing none, is there any objection to approving the agenda with the two added items? All right, thank you. Next item is approval of the previous meeting minutes. Could I get a motion to approve those minutes?
This is Carrie. A motion to approve those minutes.
Do we get a second?
This is Carol. I'll second.
Thank you, Carol. Are there any needed corrections or additions to the minutes? Seeing and hearing none, is there any objection to approving the minutes as written? All right, those minutes are approved. That brings us right to our first action item, the MTP 2050 draft goals and objectives. And who is going to lead us in this discussion?
I don't, this is Carol. I sort of started the document so I can give you a primer on what I did, and Craig's got it.
Well, that's what I was hoping you would volunteer, Carol. I didn't want to volunteer you.
Okay, so I'm out here, and what I did was take the link to the MTP goals and objectives, and then I made one column, maybe scroll down a little bit, Craig, and then we'll scroll back up. But I took the current goal. So Craig, if you could scroll a little bit.
A little more? Okay, a little more.
So where it says current goal and objective in the grid and the BPAC comment. Well, yep. Yeah.
Okay.
A little bit up. So you see the header on the document.
Is that enough?
Well, how about if you look at the left column where it says goal 2, that's as written in the current proposal.
Okay.
Right. And then the right hand column is a comment I made about the either goal or objective. And then I also included Lindsay had sent some, comments as well. So hers are integrated into this document. And if I missed any, Lindsay, I had to piece this together. So when we get to that section, speak up. All right, and then I just kind of went through it with a lens. So if you go to the very top of the document, Craig, where it starts, as I read through this entire document, I felt like there was, if you could go up to the top of the document, I probably should have driven, sorry.
Sorry. It's at the top on my screen, so maybe it's got a lag.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe I've got the lag here. So where it says general comment?
Yeah, that's what I see. We're at the top.
Yep. Okay, got it. I just kind of went through and thought, all right, are there some general comments that we as the BPAC might be interested in making? So this is more like a collaborative idea. I threw my comments out, and I guess it's a decision. Do you like my comments? Can we make my comments better? Or is my comments dumb and let's get rid of them? I'm fine with that, but I thought we needed kind of a starting place to put forward comments on the goals and objectives. So one general thing is I went through this document, and I've been on the BPAC since it started in 2012, and I don't know what these words mean. And so I really am recommending that the document gets changed to use everyday words. And that's the CDC term we call it everyday words. The US Department of Transportation supports plain language. So instead of saying things like transportation infrastructure, use real words like roads and streets and bike facilities or paths and sidewalks and so forth. So that's just like a general comment. And I know it's super hard to do as a professional when you work in this, and you're an expert, and these are the words that you use every day with your peers, and you're using these words and they mean something in your mind. But if we want the public to engage with us and we want the public to give us comments, we need to communicate with them and use words that they're going to understand. And so I'm just really encouraged, like if there's a way to go back through all of the current goals and objectives and put down everyday words. And I actually put example language in there, suggested revisions on what I at least think is being said, and tried to put it in some everyday words. So anyways, that was the main big comments. And then there was this comment about, I felt like the document jumped back and forth between transportation infrastructure, transportation systems, and some of these words, since I'm not the expert, could have been interchangeable. So if you're going to use one of those complex terms, to make sure you define it and then use the same one over and over again if it has the same meaning. But I think if you used everyday words or plain language, that issue would kind of be solved. So, any questions so far? Okay, now scroll away so that at the very top of the page, Craig, it says current goal objective and then a BPAC comment. And I think actually the very first one is Lindsay's comment. And I don't know if you can see it, Lindsay, if you want to jump in.
Sure. I don't know if we need to go comment by comment. Hopefully people had a chance to look at this ahead of time, but this was addressed after I sent this. I think maybe James Starzak said the comment or the goals are not listed in order of importance. So I don't think this needs to go away, but it's not as relevant.
Okay. Would it fit somewhere else in the document?
No, I mean, we could just take out that it shouldn't be the plan's #1 goal, but if the goals are not written in an order of importance, I don't know that it matters. Maybe the
I think
goals can just be A, B, C, D or something instead.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I just went through and there's just comments and I kind of flagged things like the A1 there. It says maintain and rehabilitate existing infrastructure. Infrastructure is not an everyday words. All modes isn't an everyday word. So if there's a way that it can be written that the public just feels more included, I think that would be helpful. And I didn't give an example there, but in goal 2, there's some examples. And I kind of just flagged some words. So I don't know if we want to kind of just look at these in big groups like goal 1 and then goal 2, and if anybody has anything additional. You want to scroll a little bit further, Craig? So I guess my general proposal is, is this the direction that the BPAC wants to go? Do we want to put collective comments forward as the BPAC on these goals and objectives? Are these the comments that we want to be making?
I'll chime in here. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah, and who's that?
This is Matt Johnson.
Oh.
I'm sorry I'm having to connect via my iPhone again this time. I just can't seem to get there on my computer, but I can hear just fine. And just as a broad general comment, I think the plain language is a great approach. I like that a lot. Golly, I'm just looking for opportunities to kind of speak up for my local neighborhood, which includes Fireweed Lane. And as winter has come and as our community council gears up, there's been a lot of talk about sidewalks in Fireweed Lane, which are basically very, very difficult to maintain. I probably don't want to get into all the nitty gritty of that, but they're too narrow for those sidewalk plowing rigs. So they're basically glaciated for most of the winter. So that particular piece of roadway and sidewalks could fit in here on many of these in terms of improved safety and security. You could also say preserve existing infrastructure. The sidewalks aren't preserved at all in the winter. I'm just scrolling down through here on my iPad, and I guess that's the first two. Those first two items are the place where our local sort of issue is that we have over here in the North Star area.
Okay, thanks for the comment. I guess anybody else? Oh, I see a hand, but I can't tell who it is.
I think that was me, Carol. This is Chelsea. I just wanted to say, in general, I echo Matt, and I agree the plain language is really important, and especially thinking about how can we engage more members of our community in these documents and these planning processes, and putting them into plain language or everyday words is a big step forward in that regard. And I just really also appreciate the time and energy that you and Lindsay both took to go through this very carefully. I read through your comments, and I think they're all, really on point and aligned with sort of the area of BPAC commenting, for lack of a better way to say that. But thank you very much.
Well, that's a good point. Yeah, are the comments that I put in here all within sort of our lane as the BPAC, which Craig is going to remind us of later on. But if you want to scroll a little bit more, I did mobility options, and even mobility options isn't very everyday wordy, and sometimes I didn't catch everything, but sometimes there were words that were just confusing, so I flagged those to have the folks that are writing this, really think, okay, what am I trying to say? And use words like bus, bike, walk, or drive instead of mobility options. So maybe scroll a little bit further. See what we've got for goal 4. Is there any comments on goal 3? I think it's pretty long. Okay. I think one of these, like 3F, I kind of felt like that this was an important one, reducing passenger vehicles miles traveled and passenger vehicle hours traveled. And hours sort of flagged in my head as like, well, that to me is, yeah, well, let's put in more high-speed highways if it's written that way. And I was thinking that really what this was trying to get at was the reverse, is that more people bike, walk, take the bus so that they don't have to use their car. So I just suggested a rewrite on how that was said, if that's what we're trying to get to. I don't know if the writers of the...
Carol, this is Daryl. Wouldn't it be also, wouldn't the goal, rather than reducing the hours driven, it'd be the miles driven?
Yeah, both miles but the hours really caught me as like, oh,
yeah.
We'll
move it faster and you cut down on the number of hours.
Yeah.
Good point.
So that's what caught me, but yes, miles too. Yeah. So anyways, you can kind of just see, I just flagged words like multimodal and 3H. And if you want to scroll a little bit more, wayfinding systems. Actually, I think this is the first the document that Lindsay sent. My newest document had actually, I decided that wayfinding wasn't really an everyday word, and had added information there about what wayfinding was. So Craig, I think there might be another document that I sent today.
Okay, I just put up the one that Joni just sent me.
Oh, okay. All right, well, support the economy. I don't think I made any big changes in that area today. And then is there anything after that? Feel like.
This is Matt. Quick comment on goal 3A. It seems that those transportation system management, transportation demand management, and intelligent transportation systems strategies, that seems kind of wonky, kind of jargony. Are those words that can be broken down into plain English?
Those are all very specific federally required programs, or in some cases, things that they've asked us to do. And that's what those things are called. There's not really, I mean, I guess you could take a couple paragraphs to spell out what that means, but it is, those are things that are in our federal certification that say you have to do a transportation demand or transportation system. Those are kind of things that they've spelled out, and that certainly the intelligent transportation system strategies is listed there. So that it gets a little challenging to not have the words that the feds are tracking us on.
Yeah, but you could maybe introduce it and say implementation of effective and innovative federally required, I don't know if you'd call these programs, or federally required something, such as transportation system management, transportation demand, and then so forth. We'd really only add like 2 or 3 extra words so that you set the stage, like these are federally required and here are some examples of the things that we have to do.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have the actual, I wish I had the goals and objectives in front of me in the format that they are as they're ready to go. And I don't remember what else was in there. This is just a quick version of it. So I just don't have that right now to know how much room there would be, or if it made sense to stuff in there.
Okay.
Well,
I think it would be helpful. Yeah, I had paused at that one too, Matt, and then I was like, I don't know how to solve that. But now that you brought it up, just saying that they're federally required programs or something.
Sure. And then maybe, I don't know if this might be not applicable, but are we talking about different audiences here? Maybe a place where we're talking to people at a community council meeting, we would break it down into more plain English than we would if we were at some other venue where there's a lot of people who are steeped in this, in the terminology. You would use a different sort of a word choice depending on your audience, I think.
Well, yes and no. I mean, since this is a written document, I think what the feds are really recommending, and it's DOT transportation calling it plain language, and CDC, is that if we want to engage the public in the work that we're doing, and we're going to put this out for public comment and hope that the public comes to this document and gives us amazing comments, we need to use words in this document that people that don't work aren't experts in this understand. So it's really important. I know it's really hard because I have a science background and I'm technical as well, and just working really hard to use those words, and it doesn't always make the sentence longer if you take a minute to really think it through. So.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Yep. That sounds right. Thanks.
Yeah. Any others on the 3s?
There's the wayfinding, so we'll go back down to 4.
Okay, yeah. Supporting the economy. I didn't see really much there, but what's up next for goal 5? Anybody on 4?
Sorry, rip past. There we go.
Okay, and then healthy environment. Oh, sorry, somebody out there?
Well, this is Lindsay. I was just going to say there are a few places that we say MTP 2040, including at the very top of the document, and mean MTP 2050. So just to flag that, since I was going off of past comments.
Yep, good catch again. Well, we got to get that. We'll tweak that.
Let's see. I'm trying to see if I have this document handy and maybe I could share. So 5. Anything with 5, healthy environment. Okay, seeing none to the next section.
Almost there.
Okay.
Prioritize equity. Oops, sorry. There you go.
Yeah, I feel like I added a few things into that today because I did run it by our health equity folks. So let me see if I can share. I wonder if I can share my screen, if I'll bump you off.
Probably will, but I'll get over it.
Okay, let's see. Let's see what I got to BPAC comments. All right. You guys see this screen?
Yep, you're on goal 6, suggested revision is what I see right now.
Excellent. I'll make it a little bit bigger. So just we spent a lot of time as a group I'm at the Department of Health for folks that don't know, and we're doing a lot of work around equity, and we have a new unit that's being stood up at the division level, a division of public health, the state of Alaska, to think through like, okay, when we're actually trying to prioritize equity, what are we trying to accomplish, and what are we trying to address? So we just put some words together here, suggested revision, that uses more. And I'm not perfect at this either. Historically, underserved or might not be super everyday wordy, but like what we really want to do is, if we're looking at a project, there's 2 projects on the table, and we go through them, that there's a little bit more attention given to those historically underserved and areas that are going to get more benefit out of the project than another project. So just trying to put words together to capture that concept. Also talking about, like, this says improve access to employment, education, rec, essential services. But really what we want to do is, improve connections in primarily physically active friendly routes, which is busing, biking, and walking between those employment centers, so that people can get to where they can get to their everyday destinations, basically. So that was a suggested revision in that area.
Carol, this is Daryl. I think historically underserved is perfect wording. That is what is used for a lot of different agencies and organizations. And when you look at Anchorage, I can tell you what neighborhoods that would refer to. It would be Mountain View, Fairview, Russian Jack, Spenard. I think it's the perfect language for that.
Okay, thank you for that. And we are using what other folks around the nation are using, but and then really, like, this was just poorly worded. So here's the suggested revision that we want to minimize adverse impacts on existing neighborhoods. So just catching some of the words there. And then this is where we ended up kind of expanding a little bit more, but it was reducing barriers to public participation by traditionally underrepresented groups. We sort of thought that we should flip this around and really think about that, who we want to include. And so you know, we want to improve the ability of those historically disenfranchised, that's not an everyday word, but I couldn't think of anything else, and underrepresented groups to participate in the public transportation decision-making process. And one of the ways we can do that is by using everyday words. So when they look at a document like this, they're like, oh, I understand what this thing is telling me. So that I just think is like one thing we could do right away to get there. And then there were additional thoughts of like ensuring full and fair participation of racialized minority groups, fostering more equitable treatment of diverse languages in these public communications. So if there are places to translate these programs or to bring in translators when you're sharing these projects in certain neighborhoods, like really calling out the kind of things that we need to do to get the participation that we want. Engaging with our foreign-born populations and women and female-headed households to really understand their behaviors and usage differences. They're different when you're a single mom or have a family or you have a one-car household than it is for somebody that has more resources. So, and then, so I just really want people to take a look at that to see if we're comfortable making those types of recommendations as a BPAC. And then, so I'll pause for a moment there.
Thank you, Carol. I don't see anything I couldn't support. So I think the question for the members of the committee is, do we want to move this forward as coming recommendations, feedback coming from the BPAC? Are we comfortable with the language that's there tonight? Does it need to be tweaked some more? What's the thought of the committee?
Hey, this is Lindsay, and I would feel comfortable moving this forward if we need a motion or a second or any discussion, and then can just work with Carol or whoever would like to just finalize the language and make sure that it's coherent.
Lindsay, would you like to make a motion so we can get it on the floor for discussion?
Yeah, I'll motion to I guess adopt these comments on behalf of the BPAC.
And have Carol do.
I'll second that.
All right. Any further discussion? Seeing and hearing no further discussion, is there any objection to moving these comments forward? Seeing and hearing none, these comments will be forwarded as official comments and feedback suggestions from the BPAC. Thank you, Carol and Lindsay and others who worked on the document.
All right, do we need to put it into any kind of memo, Craig, and have Daryl sign it, or?
Oh, no, we'll just send it like this. That's fine.
Okay, make sure it's the most current version though, because the version you'd pulled up earlier didn't have the additional health equity pieces in it.
Yeah, I'll just, if you could just send it again, so I
Okay.
can make sure I don't want to make the mistake and think I have the right one and it isn't, so.
Exactly, or maybe I sent the wrong one again this afternoon, so I will send the right one.
Yeah, if you could just say it and say, hey, here's the right one, then I'll know.
Got it.
That'd be great, thank you.
All right, thank you. That brings us to our next agenda item, which is general information, and we're going to kick off with Craig's short overview of the BPAC and our roles and responsibilities. Sure.
And I'll be quick. I mean, we've talked about this before, but it's just kind of a reminder of a couple of things. One is that the AMATS Policy Committee that's the final arbiter. They're the ones who get to decide what we will do going forward as a Metropolitan Planning Organization, or MPO. And I'm emphasizing the word planning in there because that's what we are. We're a planning organization. So if you look at the AMATS Technical Advisory Committee and the AMATS Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee and the AMATS Freight Advisory Committee and the Community Advisory Committee, they're all advisory to the Policy Committee, and that includes the Technical Advisory Committee. So they're, you know, yes, sure, the TAC, the Technical Advisory Committee, has been around a while, so they have a little more oomph, but they're all advisory. They're not finals, all that sort of stuff. The other key, again, that I just want to point out is that AMATS is a metropolitan planning organization. They're a planning organization, and they're not a design entity. And so what we are tasked with doing with these federal funds is planning for the 20-year future of transportation-related projects inside the AMATS area. And in other words, we can offer some advice on, you know, whether you're going to have amenities on the sides of things. But for the most part, we're talking about planning. We don't design things. We don't talk about, well, it should be this curb radius instead of that curb radius. We have professional engineers both at the state of Alaska and the municipality of Anchorage that's what they've trained for. And they have the latest and greatest information on all those guidelines. And so the designers do the designing and we do the planning. That's our role here. So just wanted to make sure everyone was aware and up to speed on that sort of thing. Did I miss anything, Mr. Chair, or did I catch that for you?
No, I think you covered it all. Any committee members have any questions for Craig? Well, thank you, Craig.
Absolutely.
You know, I think a reminder is helpful sometimes at my age.
And I just want to point out, I just noticed that CB Brady has joined the conversation, and since he's a BPAC member, I just wanted to make sure for the record we see that he's online now.
Welcome, CB.
Thanks. I was in another board meeting, so I'm sorry I am late, but happy to join.
You're getting credit though, so there you go.
All right, next item is Northern Lights Boulevard, Minnesota Drive to Seward Highway project, Dow. Do we have a rep from Dow?
Yeah, this is Sean Baskey with the Department of Transportation. I think.
Hi, Sean. Welcome.
Yeah, good to see everybody again. Just doing a screen share. I don't know if everybody sees that.
Yep.
And, all right. So Sean Baskey, project manager with the Department of Transportation. I think I've got 8 team members here between the 2 projects that you'll be seeing me for tonight. So we're here to listen on a number of comments that you guys might want to share with us today. So this one, the first one is the AMATS Northern Lights Minnesota to Seward Highway Sidewalk Repairs Project. So purpose of the project basically to improve Northern Lights between those 2 roads, and really focus on the existing non-motorized facilities that are there. Fairly narrow scope overall, and so just looking at the overall project schedule, we started back early this spring, 2021. We're working on the environmental document right now all summer. Well, not all summer, but a portion of the summer. We went out and did some bare bones reconnaissance to try to look at what the problem is out there to make sure that we understand what's going on out there. We'll be, as we move forward, we'll look at final design 2022, 2023. Could go much after that, depending on the overall final scope of the project, and then construction sometime after that. So the reason that we're here today, though, is really originally shown in the tip. We had $800,000 in construction funding for the project, and this summer, our goal was to manage expectations and try to understand what it is that we could do with the funding that was shown in the tip, and then maybe paint the picture for what it could be if additional funding was made available, but trying not to overpromise and underdeliver overall on the project. And so we've taken a look at things, and now we're ready to report out. We've already made a presentation to the TAC and the policy committee earlier this month, and so now we're here. So let's just quickly go through the corridor. You folks are probably well versed in the issues that are out there, but let's paint the picture. So 1975 is when the original corridor was kind of built out to what you see today. 4 to 5 foot wide concrete sidewalks on both sides. There's transit stops on the north side of the roadway for Route 10. And the last project that really went through the space and did much of anything was a pavement preservation project for the main roadway in 2015, where we redid all the curb ramps along the entire corridor at the main streets. Sidewalks are pretty damaged. Cross slopes are pretty steep, well in excess of 2% for long stretches of it. It's a pretty harrowing experience for a number of users. So just looking at the overall issues along the corridor, obviously non-ADA compliant sidewalks, but when we look at driveways, most of the driveways are pitched really steeply from one side to the other, from the neighboring lot elevation all the way down to roadway elevation across the sidewalk, which has a really steep cross slope. Curb cuts and other things, for each of the driveways present hazards for ADA. And then just another point is that there's a number of driveways or access points that potentially may be opportunities for limiting the access. So basically elimination of driveways. Some examples along the corridor, we might have, let's say, 7 driveways onto one property, for instance. So there may be some opportunities to reduce access, thereby, opening up the sidewalk to that space. Moving down, we've got utilities, storm drains, fire hydrants, what we call, junction boxes, kind of in this picture here, where, those are right in the sidewalk and present, difficulties for folks. Certainly some large lips and other things to have to go up and over. So let's take a quick look at the Joni sent around a PDF, which kind of paints the overall picture a little bit better than just the words on those slides. And so if you want to open up that email, more than welcome to, and you can peruse it on your own. Basically, the orange lines along the entire corridor are everything that are not ADA compliant. So if I were to zoom out, almost all of it is orange. Non-ADA compliant sidewalks. If we were to look at driveways, those would be the dots. So the light blue dot is non-ADA compliant driveways. So, maybe too steep or, some other kind of barrier. And then green dots are potential opportunities maybe to have some driveway removals, to try to control access. Now, we'd have to work with each property owner, have to ensure that they meet standards, talk to them about needs for the driveways. Just because they're painted in green here does not mean that we can remove them. potential opportunities. There's different symbols here for utilities and luminaires or street lights that might be in the sidewalk and are preventing an ADA compliant pathway or sidewalk. And so if you look across the corridor, there's issues nearly down the entire corridor from end to end in every stretch. Along Arctic Boulevard, Bering Street, Chichaco Street, Dawson Street. It just continues. There's certain stretches that are a little bit better, but not measurably over the rest of the corridor. So to get all this information, we had a couple folks go out and measure things and document everything along the corridor. But we didn't go out and do extensive surveys over the entire corridor, trying to basically just paint the picture for the issues that cross it. Any questions or comments?
Question?
Yeah, go for it.
Question. Yeah, thanks. So this is Matt on the, is there a particular reason or set of reasons why there is so much orange ADA non-compliance on the sidewalks? Is it the width of the walk, or is it the pitch of the driveway, or all of the above?
So some of it is probably cross slope issues. I've got a number of team members they can hop in if they want
Sure.
that are here as well, but it's probably cross slope and other similar issues.
Yeah, this is Dave Gamez. I'm on the design team with Lounsbury. Sean basically hit it on the head there. Most of the issues out there are cross slopes in excess of 2%, which is the ADA, ADA compliant cross slope. So we actually got a topographic survey of all of the sidewalks out there, and we did a check versus what we found in the field, and we're able to identify all of the segments that were in excess of 2%. So those orange lines are not only sidewalks, but they also include the driveway sections that are there too. So like Sean mentioned earlier in the presentation, most of the driveway accesses out there are well in excess of 2%. Some of them, up around 10% cross slope.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions before we continue on?
I have one. This is John Miller, school district.
Sure.
The width of the sidewalk, if you guys are comfortable with that width along Northern Lights, huh? I would think that would have a big part in it too, just because I walk that occasionally. It's quite narrow.
It is. So, this project is right now just looking at rebuilding what's existing. And we'll start getting into some dollar figures just to, make things compliant in the existing configuration. And it's a tremendous amount of money. Certainly if we were to engage in, trying to make things wider than minimum ADA compliance, then you're talking about, impacts to every property, major right-of-way acquisitions. If we start engaging in conversations about moving curb lines and things like that, then it's rebuilding storm drain systems, and I mean it's a tremendous amount of work. So one part of this project is just to be able to do anything to the sidewalk, we had to go out and remap the right-of-way because we're right up against the right-of-way lines. And so, we can't have permanent improvements back on private properties. There might be limited opportunities to, widen some of the facilities within the existing right-of-way, but, anytime we're doing anything like that, utilities are right there in the sidewalk, right behind the sidewalk. As soon as you touch anything outside of the existing footprint, then you're talking about, major relocations for utilities potential, it just gets monumental very quickly.
Hey, Sean, I see that Lindsay has her hand up.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I have a few questions and just kind of building off of that point. So when there are instances where utilities are within the sidewalks, will they not be removed? Will we continue to have non-ADA compliant sidewalks at the end of this project?
Well, it depends on the amount of funding that the project has. So if, if we're to engage in full compliance, then the utilities would likely stay within the sidewalk, but we'd reset junction boxes and other things. There's a reason why they're in the sidewalk, because there's probably no room behind the sidewalk within the right of way. And there may be, let's just say, parking spaces right behind it or something like that. So we would reset junction boxes, do other things to, make sure that it's ADA compliant. But in the end, you'd still see a facility with storm drain manholes, sewer manholes, overhead electric poles, things like that, throughout the corridor. It's not a reconstruct of everything and move it back. For that, it would be tens of millions of dollars to move utilities.
Mm-hmm. Sure, I appreciate that. And I also think with this road, it's one of our high injury networks, especially Northern Lights and A Street. That's where a lot of collisions happen, severe collisions and some deaths along this whole stretch. And so when we redo something and just put it back the way it is, I just think it's a missed opportunity. So of course we'll advocate to fund more so that we can make more improvements and make it safer. But I would also invite the team to do a walk along this stretch now with the snow that's falling, as we speak. Because when, the question is, are these like 4-foot sidewalks wide enough? They're not right now. They serve as snow storage for so much of the year that they're really not functional. So when we want to improve it and make it ADA compliant, that should be year round and not just within the summer months. And I know it's a bigger question than this, but it's every project that we always come across. So I'd be happy to lead a walk along this stretch if the team is interested. And I also appreciate the consideration of removing some of the driveways, because there are different sections of properties where it feels like the whole stretch of sidewalk is a driveway. So
yeah, for sure,
making those changes I think will be big. But I do hope that we can move the utilities, the light poles, think about how to actually make this sidewalk passable and not just somewhat ADA compliant, but compliant year round and accessible for everybody. So I appreciate that this is happening, and it stretches through a few different community councils, Spenard, Midtown being some of them. And so just would invite your team to make some appearances at the council meetings, especially as design gets further along.
Yeah, and we're more than happy to engage with the community at an extremely at more so than we are right now. The big thing on this is that the provided budget for this project is between design and construction is nearly nothing. And so ultimately, if we want to engage more, do more work, then we're going to eat more budget. especially when we start talking about redoing driveways. I just want to make it clear that, you know, redoing a driveway goes back onto private property, and, you know, we potentially have to do parking studies and other things because, you know, we're going to have to regrade well back onto properties. And so that means talking to nearly every single property owner, working with them on their, you know, impacts to their properties. And so this will make this project drag along. We're more than happy to do all of that, but this project will take an extensive period of time, a lot of resources, and it will
It's just also something that
Yeah.
we'll have for a long time as a community.
Oh, for
so
sure.
we know, you know, all the work that goes into it, and we know how long we have to deal with what we have, especially if it changes and it's not much of an improvement.
Yeah.
All right, I see Chelsea and Carol with their hands up. If you're done, Lindsay. If you're not, go ahead and keep.
No, I got it. Thank you.
Great. Okay, great. Then let's go with Chelsea and then Carol.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for presenting this and for bringing it to this group. I agree with Lindsay that it'll be really critical to share with community members. And I appreciate that this is a project that's happening, but I would hesitate to say that, like, you know, we're begging for these types of projects in Anchorage, and for you guys to make it sound like it's barely happening. I mean, we're about to get a ton of infrastructure money, and I know that that's a complicated process. I'm aware of the federal funding and how many years it takes to get the different money, but you know, this committee lives and breathes for these types of projects, and so it feels like you're sort of like teasing us with this a little bit, to be quite honest. And really, you know, I'm really excited about this, and I want this road to change. I think this road is a major barrier for a lot of people in Anchorage, and not just people walking and biking. I mean, I drove it today, and it's scary to drive when the snow is coming down and the plows aren't going frequently enough. So, you know, narrowing the road and increasing the sidewalk would make it safer for everybody. And I know you guys know that. I know you know all the design and engineer information, but you know, it's just like, can we also think about, you know, what is the best case scenario if we do get this landfall funding that comes through in time to make a difference, and, you know, really push for driveways to be removed, and work with those. You know, can we engage with partners so that they're excited about it too? Yeah, I guess I would just say that I appreciate you bringing this to us, and I don't mean to be too critical, but it feels like it's a bit of a tease to say that, like, it's sort of happening but not really happening.
Hey, Sean, can I
that
pop
makes
in
sense.
for just a second?
Sure. Yeah.
Sean, so let me just clarify kind of what we're doing here. And Sean's got a little more presentation, and it's really good. I've seen it a couple of times. It's really helpful. But what Sean is doing is they've done some preliminary work, and they've done some scoping, and they've come back and said, hey, you know, we can kind of look at this and see that it's, if you really want to do something significant, you're going to have to do something more. You're going to have to add more money to it. And that's Sean's role. Sean is design and come up with your ideas. Sean is not money guy. That's not his role. AMATS, what we're here to do is say, as you pointed out very clearly and very correctly, Lindsay, is that we're getting more funds. We're getting some CRISA funds, which are part of the COVID relief funds. We have this new infrastructure bill. We're going to have a potential opportunity very soon to go, all right, Sean, we're with you on this. We would like to put more there. We have Mr. Weddleton's on right now. He can speak for himself on the policy committee, but he's one of the policy committee members that can look at that and say, you know, we see this as a big priority. We know it's a priority to the bike and ped community, as well as this bike and ped committee. And Sean's, you know, he's just waiting. If you want to do it, just give him money and he'll do it. So
I'll spend the money where people.
Yeah, he's ready to go.
I mean, that's my job, is to deliver the projects that I'm funded for. And right now I'm telling you that I'm not funded for hardly anything.
Yeah, I can tell you AMAT staff is excited about the potential for this project as well. So hopefully with all of us together, we'll be able to convince the policy committee that this one's is a great candidate. So
now I can kind of hop into, you know, what the cost.
Sean, just before you pop in, sorry, Carol's got her hand up too. I want to get to Carol,
Sure.
and then and you can finish off then. Go ahead, Carol. You're on mute.
Okay, thank you. Yep,
there you go.
thank you. Yeah, I know, Sean, you're tasked with this one project, but is there a way to look at this project and be like, we need to change the road to 3 lanes so that we can get this extra sidewalk, and maybe going back to a 2-way street? I know this is sort of like crazy idea, but we know if traffic's moving, that slows traffic down, it would make it more safe. There's just like that big picture, like if we could start from scratch, how would we design that road? Do those conversations happen?
With respect to this kind of project?
This road, yeah.
I mean,
because if
ultimately,
we started from scratch, that road would not look like that at all. So like, is there ever that scenario, throw it on the table and figured out?
that would be when a project got nominated, you know, either through AMATS or through the normal STIP process for a major reconstruction project. You know, I don't even want to fathom how expensive a project like that is. You know, or I can't put a number to it off the top of my head, but we're talking, you know, portions of, if not more than $100 million, right? You know, that's the kind of money we're talking about, which is, you know, currently nearly a third of the overall program for the entire central region, you know, where we've got a couple thousand miles of roadway to do almost entirely on the federal budget, on the federal docket. So
and it's,
I would
is there
say
a way
that,
to take a lane out of there and to get that extra sidewalk width? To like, who considers that point?
well, the project that I'm scoped with right now doesn't include that. If, you know,
But who
AMATS,
would have made that decision? Like, how do we get to that level of like, this road is terrible, and if we took out a lane, we could get our extra sidewalk, and then you wouldn't have all these right-of-way issues that I'm hearing. And I know I might be totally talking crazy. Your slope issues would go away. Having those utilities in the way, you know, would sort of go away as well, because your sidewalks would be wider. Traffic would be way slower on there. We would have less crashes. Like, who is giving the direction to get us to that big thinking?
so I would say, you know, at the department, that would be our planners and, you know, nominations working with the municipality of Anchorage. But, you know, really, you know, those kinds of big changes happen through major planning documents, whether it's the LRTP, the Long Range Transportation Plan, the MTP, and a number of other, you know, major planning documents. They're not birthed out of, you know, a project, let's say, that's handed to me, and then, you know, it's not, you know, just a couple of people sitting around and brainstorming projects. It's through major planning efforts.
Okay, thank you for that.
Now James has his hand up. Mr. Starzyk with DOT.
Hi, James Starzyk, DOT Planning. Thanks for bringing me up, Sean.
I didn't bring you up by name. I just just the function.
Exactly. Yeah. No, but you're absolutely right, though. These things aren't done in a vacuum, and it takes a number of steps before you do a major redesign of a facility like Northern Lights, and you know, it starts. You know, we have opportunities to do some planning activities that could take a strong look at the Northern Lights Benson area. Think about, you know, how does it function? What do people use it for? How does the current design support those uses and future uses? So, you know, I mean, we do this, and it's an integral part of how we go about developing projects and helping to design the transportation system for the future. You know, this particular project, was included in the AMATS tip as a pathways and trails preservation project. And so the scope of this project by design is focused on the sidewalks and the pathways. So there could be a lot of options for redesigning the entirety of the right of way, but this particular project is constrained by that designation as a trails and pathway project.
Thank you. That's also helpful.
That's all the hands I see. Sean, you can keep going.
Yeah. So these are construction costs. These are planning level construction costs you see on the screen here. Likely if we were to mix and match these, I could not deliver a project for that cost. So let's just say that they're very rough order of magnitude, in the ballpark. It may be well more than that. So to do sidewalk repairs to make them ADA compliant on just the north side, $800,000. Just the south side, $900,000. North side driveway repairs to make them ADA compliant, and to redo the grades all the way back onto the individual private properties, $1 million on the north side, $400,000 on the south side. Utility relocations on the right side, and those are very rough. It may be well over that, depending on how much we get into things. So those are rough costs. Remember that we've got $800,000 shown in the tip for the project. Here's a number of alternatives that we just threw out there. If we were limited to the $800,000 we have at hand, it might buy you alternative one. Plus or minus, but yeah. So I guess the point of this is really that if we're looking to upgrade the facility minimally to just bring it into ADA compliance, we're talking many millions of dollars, and that's keeping it with the same footprint, not widening it, not making it the shining star of anything. It's just redoing what's there.
I see Joni with her hand up.
Oh, thanks. Thanks, Sean. Yes, I've seen your presentation a few times now. Thank you for presenting. What is the what do you think the pathway? Because I feel like we've heard some comments, especially I remember Bart's comments last week at the policy meeting. Would there be a pathway to because I hear the BPAC members and kind of second their concern that if we're going to spend money to fix this road, should we be doing, spending more money to really fix it and make it safe or safer for pedestrians? I know I have a doctor's office on this road that I walk to, and when I go there in the summer and in the winter, especially, but in the summer, you really have to take your life in your hands just to go out. You park behind and then go out just onto this sidewalk for a minute to walk around and then go in the front door. And it's always, it's just treacherous. It's so unsafe. And so I'm wondering, what is the pathway? What would be the pathway to redesigning the right of way? Maybe putting this project, instead of adding more money to make the project able to meet ADA compliance, to moving from that towards a project where we could have an option to do it right, redesign the whole right of way. I know you mentioned that was going to be $100 million or more, but
yeah, don't quote me on that. I mean,
I know it's going to be expensive, but what would be the pathway to that?
I can just tell you how long it would take to design. I'm going to let Muni, AMATS, and DOT planners handle any of the other discussions for, you know, a path to delivery of a project like that. But I can tell you that between the environmental document, which would probably take, let's just say, 3 to 5 years, depending on the level of documentation, I doubt it would put you into what we call an environmental assessment. That would take us 5 to 7 years. But just a bare bones, what we call a categorical exclusion, which is the lowest level of environmental document on a federally funded project like this, would take anywhere between 3 and 5 years. So that's before you get into final design. Now, once you start talking about right-of-way acquisition, relocation of utility designs, and all of those, that'll take you another minimum, let's say 2 to 3 years. And so from, if we were to start the project today, it would take us minimum 8 years, more likely 12 years, 10 to 12 years to deliver a project, to get to construction, and then you're talking, I don't know, 2 to 3 years of construction. So that's the timeline to get a project like that done, assuming that it started today.
Yeah, and as for this is Craig, as for the steps that you would have to take. So again, as James pointed out, this was scoped as basically a paving replacement. We're rehabbing just the sidewalks, and anytime you do that, you have to make sure they're up to ADA standards. But that's what this project can do. If you wanted to do that 3-lane kind of idea of a reconstruction, it has to be nominated for the TIP, and then once it gets on the TIP, then that starts that funding process. I mean, if it gets approved to go on the TIP. And then it just starts that funding process of having first the design, and if you need any right of way, and those different phases. And that's the 8 or so years that Sean was talking about if you're going to do a full-blown kind of reconstruction project. We're in the process right now. We're hoping we're going to get our criteria approved by the policy committee this month, and then we'll be able to shortly thereafter hopefully get some nomination forms created and put out a call for nominations. So that's when the opportunity would be there for nominating this project for reconstruction in whatever kind of vision of that it would be.
Thanks, Craig. Thank you, Sean. And when you explain it like that, that's very helpful, I think, because it's like, okay, well, 12 years, maybe it does make sense to spend, close to 4 million to get it to ADA compliance and at least improve that amount. And then while you're doing that, you could work on, a complete right-of-way design, redesign. But anyways, that was helpful. Thank you.
Is any more questions for Sean or comments?
I see another question in there about Chugach Electric, undergrounding electric lines. So yes, if we pay them to do it. So, and then I'm not sure whether or not those are distribution or transmission lines, but it'd be many millions of dollars.
Hey, Sean, CB, Alaska Center for the Blind. How is this project tied? Sorry for my ignorance, but is it tied into traffic as far as like crosswalks and signals go? Or is that a separate dollar?
So are you talking about the existing
intersections
crosswalks,
with lights and crosswalks? Yeah. So
the previous pavement preservation project did a number of the existing crosswalks, and if there's specific things that are identified, then I would think that the scope would probably be broad enough that we might be able to do something there. If there's comments on that we need to be aware of that we're not already aware of.
Cool, thanks.
Any other questions for Sean? Thank you, Sean.
Yep.
We appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
That brings us to our next agenda item, which is an update on AMATS tip.
Oh, well, I kind of just gave it, but the AMATS tip, the criteria are at the TAC this Thursday, and we had well over 100 comments from all sorts of different folks. And then we'll hopefully have the TAC look at those and make their recommendations to the policy committee. And then in 2 weeks, that will get to the policy committee. And if they approve them in whatever form they approve them, then, as I said, we'll start building those nomination forms so that we can do a call for nominations and start building that. It needs to be approved by, kind of the July, August timeframe, July being better so that it's approved before the start of the next fiscal year, which is October 1. So we can hit the ground running on that. So there's kind of your timeframe on that. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them or try to answer them.
Any questions for Craig? Thank you, Craig.
You bet.
Brings us to an update on the non-motorized plan.
Thanks, Gerald. Hi, this is Joni. Yep, the non-motorized plan is almost done. We are wrapping up final changes to the plan that came about through the public involvement process. And so we are on schedule to finish the draft by, I believe it's December 22nd. And after that, I'll be getting a copy of the draft in InDesign, and all of the mapping and GIS data will be coming over as well. And so we'll have it all together, and then hopefully we can print sometime early in the new year. So hopefully January, we will have some printed copies for folks. So I'm excited to get done with that. It's been a long project, and I know you all helped a ton with comments and reviewing that. So thank you. And then that's the non-motorized plan. I'll just jump right into the next item, which is just update on AMATS planning projects. So we also have a safety campaign that Craig has put in place, or we worked with traffic to start a safety campaign. So we've got a bunch of things coming out, including some reflective gear for folks. And we are working with Alaska Walking and Biking Alliance to put that together. And we have $50,000 going into that program. So they are also going to be doing that and finishing that up for us in December. And so you will see reflective folks with reflective gear and bus wraps and things like that. So it's a bunch of stuff going into that. So thank you, Craig. The other thing we've got going on around the corner is a safety plan. And so that RFP for that will be going out fairly soon here. We also have an RFP for a street typologies plan that will be going on the streets hopefully in December, or right in first thing in 2022. So, and other than that, we're keeping busy. I know that's yep, that's it for me for those updates. And I know that Craig has an announcement, but I don't know if now is the appropriate time, but we'll finish up the meeting.
Oh, I wonder what it could be. So any questions for Joni?
Looks like Emily's got her hand up.
Yeah, hi Joni, can you hear me okay?
I can.
Great. Could you just talk a little bit more about the topology plan and what that's all about? I'm just not aware of what that means.
Yep, nope. So the street typology plan is a plan to integrate how we do transportation planning with what's happening on the adjacent land use. So, for example, a road such as Tudor Road that was designed a long time ago and used to have very different land uses around it has now built up to have a lot of residential and businesses and everything. And so there's a lot more pedestrian and bicyclist traffic on that road. So the street typologies plan looks at every single road. It looks at our OSNHP road classifications, and then also looks at what the land use is doing around it to then designate the road as a certain street type. So in our OSNHP plan, we have several different street typologies that were fleshed out back when that plan was created. So we'll be creating new, using that one and moving forward, maybe changing some of those to create new street typologies. So example is like a downtown street or an urban street or a mixed use street, or, you know, you have a neighborhood street, that where we can have a little bit more influence over how the street is designed, making sure that it's designed to accommodate the land use that's happening around it. And the other important piece will be that a street that's maybe designed as a collector, it may not be the land use for the entire length of the road, may not support that collector designation. And so the street typologies plan will allow us to go in there and go, well, okay, between these, you know, in this segment, it serves as a collector well, but over here, we've got all these things that have developed around it. So maybe we should reconsider designating that street as a different street type here. So things like that. So it just gives us more flexibility with how we can design a street to make sure that it's safer and serving the land use that's happening around it. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Any other questions for Joni? CB, you have your hand up. Is it for a question for Joni, or do you just haven't taken it down?
You're on mute, CB, if you're waxing poetic.
I'm sorry, say that again.
You have your hand up still.
Do you have a question, or is it still up from when you
Oh,
asked?
it's still up. I'm sorry.
Okay, no problem. I just wanted to make sure.
Thank you.
So we have one more presentation. So Craig, did you want to do your announcement now or after the Spenard Road update?
Let's do Spenard.
Okay, that brings us to our Spenard Road project update. I know we've all been looking forward to this.
Yeah, so Sean Baskey again. I guess the reason we've come in and chatted with BPAC before in the past. So I'll give you a quick update on where things are at. There's been a number of comments that we've received from the public, and I figured it was probably a good opportunity before you guys are off for the quarter. So let's hop into it. Again, this one is being designed by Lounsbury and Associates. This one is a municipality of Anchorage roadway, and so we're working collaboratively with our municipal counterparts. So they're part of the team in order to try to deliver this project. I don't know that I want to go through a lot of the history again. I think a number of you have already seen this presentation half a year ago. But basically, this is the third phase of reconstructing Spenard Road or rehabilitating Spenard Road. It's many years in the making. Really, it's to try to contextually bring the roadway back up to current expectations and standards. Try to address crashes. Apply a multimodal strategy to make things better. The existing section of Spenard Road, I think we all know what it looks like today, but 4 lanes, 35 mile an hour, ADTs or traffic counts in the 8,000 to 10,000 vehicles a day. A few signalized intersection throughout the corridor, a lot of intersecting cross streets, a lot of driveways going into businesses and other properties along this space. We've had a tremendous amount of public outreach on the project, a couple open houses. You know, even during COVID, we had some opportunities for people to visit with us outside and talk about things and walk the corridors and give us feedback on things. We heard a lot of comments about a lot of different things. I won't go over every comment. We'll just kind of hop into the overall picture. We're looking at you know, transit facilities, basically leaving them where they're at. That's the current direction from MOA Transit. We're looking at bike lanes throughout the corridor, basically a 3-lane section throughout it. I can kind of zoom in on a portion of it to give you the overall look and feel of it, but basically a 2-way left turn lane, you know, single lanes each direction, and then bike lanes to the outside is the general philosophy.
Sean, sorry, this is Joni. Are you showing us on your screen? Because I can't see it, but I was like, oh, maybe I'm the only one.
No, just standard.
Now it's going to be really good.
I know, this is going to be so good. Don't worry.
We're all mesmerized just watching you talk, but this will be better.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'll just flip through those slides real quick. Phase 3 of the project. Existing section, 4 lanes with very narrow sidewalks on either side that are very uncomfortable. Heard a bunch of comments from the public. And then the overall corridor map. 3-lane section, generally, transit facilities. And then there's the question up at Minnesota, how to deal with that in a very narrow space, realizing that you've got a constrained right away, which is what we came back and talked to BPAC and all the other committees. And basically the policy committee, through a change in the tip language, allowed us to now take on looking at the western side of Minnesota just as it impacts active transportation facilities on the east side. And so the general gist of the issue was that given that we had 2 lanes eastbound on the western side of Minnesota, it required us to accept 2 lanes on the east side of Minnesota, which basically gives us no room within the existing right of way to do anything without, you know, no bike lanes, no, you know, no wider sidewalks, no nothing, no pathway, because we would have had to have basically bought out the bowling alley, which becomes very difficult, if not not cost effective to do that. So we've opened the door through the policy committee and the tip language to allow us to look at that and potentially narrow this down to 1 lane. We should have confirmation on that later in December. And so we're excited about that opportunity. And that really allows us different opportunities than what you see here. This shows a 4-lane section. Then, you know, we'd likely convert over to a 3-lane section with a 2-way left turn lane in the middle, carrying the bike lanes on the north side and the south side. But, you know, similarly holding the bike lane to right here. And largely that's because you've got a right through lane here on this section. And so because of the conflict between the right through lane, we wouldn't be able to carry the bike lane any further than that space without a reconfiguration of the entire Minnesota intersection and the western side of the intersection, which then, you know, is again outside of the scope of the project. So we're doing what we can with bike lanes and facilities. This portion of the project. So the Municipality of Anchorage Design Criteria Manual and the typology that we were provided it's a minor arterial, which shows, you know, these kinds of facilities. We've recently got approval from MOA Traffic to drop the median width to 13 feet. So you'll start seeing that in these next figures. And so we're really looking at 3 different options: two-way left turn lane, 13 feet, 11-foot lanes, some bike lanes that are narrower than we would like at 4 foot, but with an 8-foot multi-use pathway. This is already widening the existing right-of-way into each of those businesses by 5 feet. So, and each of these alternatives basically has the same 65-foot right-of-way need. We had some other options, looking at 13-foot, again, two-way left turn lane, 11-foot travel lane, placing the bike lane behind the sidewalk, behind the curb and gutter. Option 3 is again 65-foot consistent right of way between all of them. This one basically is the same as option 1, but takes a half a foot off of the sidewalk and then basically makes it non-compliant, or we can't call it a multi-use pathway where bicyclists and pedestrians, you know, are accommodated on the sidewalk, and then puts that half a foot over in the bike lane. So those are the 3 options that we showed at the most recent open house here a few months ago this fall. Again, that's the 3-lane roadway showing all of the transit stops. Overall, the project schedule, we're continuing to work on the environmental document. We should have that done here really early next year. And then we'll begin final design right-of-way acquisition for the next 2 to 3 years, which will put us out there and hopefully construction starting in 2025, pending a lot of things, including availability of funding from AMATS. And that's about it for the presentation. I know that there might be some comments and questions from folks.
Carol has a question, I think, or a comment.
Yeah, I got a question. Was there kind of a clear winner when you showed all those option 1, 2, and 3? Was there something when you went for public comment that people seemed to lean towards more than others?
So I would say option 1's consistent with the previous section of Spenard Road, so phase 2, north of Northern Lights. And so I would say that people are most familiar with that, and so that's probably what we heard most, you know, about. Certainly there's comments about wanting wider facilities, you know, and different things associated with that, but I would say that option 1's probably what we heard most favorable.
Lindsay, you have a question?
Yeah, thanks. On the public comments, are you still accepting them, or is there a deadline before you can finalize the environmental?
So as far as the environmental document goes, I think we can finish it up without having a decision on any of the options. You know, certainly based off of the public comment that we've heard, you know, I think we're leaning towards option 1. We're going to continue to go through the context sensitive solutions process. You know, we're submitting some of our documents to planning and zoning in the Municipality of Anchorage's planning section to work through that process. and I would say that public comments are always welcome all the way until we get to construction. Certainly the sooner that we get them, the more easily we can, accommodate them or consider them as we're moving forward with the project. And, the project team, is made up of consultants. Department of Transportation is, because it's a federally funded project, we're, tasked with delivering the project. But, this is a municipality of Anchorage project that we're working collaboratively with them on. Ultimately, it's their road that they'll have to own and maintain in the future. So any comments that we're receiving, we're passing along to them, and ultimately, there has to be an agreement to move forward with anything.
Great, thanks.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you. I want to say personally, I frequent that corridor, and I think we need buffered options for bicyclists. There's so many bicyclists with different comfort levels in that area that not having a buffered option might reduce the use of the bicycle facilities.
Sure. And, I think that there's a couple different things that we've heard, buffered options as well as protected bike lanes. And ultimately the question becomes, where does that space come from, and how does the municipality of Anchorage maintain it? And so I'd love to hear ideas that we can pass along to, our partners at the municipality, so that way they can consider things as we're moving forward. Everything's on the table. It ultimately, it's got to be a maintainable facility. It's got to adhere to some of their policies, unless they're considering, waiving some of their policies. And so I guess, I'll point out that Bike Anchorage has shared a memo with us. They've provided to their members a section, and this is what their section looks like. Ultimately, the good thing is that we recognize that this is 65 feet wide, so we're still talking about the same amount of space. Now we're talking about allocation of space. So when I see things like this, then ultimately I've got to pass along the comments to the municipality of Anchorage, and they've got to consider things. So, but immediately what the comments that I'm going to get is, how do they maintain it? Where do they stick the snow, and how do they remove the snow while they're still handling all of their existing facilities?
Thanks. Emily has a question.
Sure.
Yeah, thanks. And thanks for this, Sean. That's great to hear the update. So I wondered if you could speak a little bit more to the maintenance issue, and maybe you don't know, maybe somebody else on the call would be better to speak to this, or I can follow up with somebody. But I was just wondering sort of exactly what the concern is with maintaining a protected bike lane versus like option one, where it's just a painted bike lane. What would be the difference there?
Sure. So again, I only represent the Department of Transportation, and I'll speak to what our likely operations would look like, and and maybe we can have a conversation about what that might look like. But let's just say that that DOT only has 7 plows at any one particular time, right? Covering hundreds of miles, but this is a muni road, and so they've got more equipment, but they've also got lower speed roads to maintain. And so at some point in time, they've got to plow the snow to somewhere. you know, with whatever options. And so, you know, I'm just guessing their existing operation would look like, you know, I can draw on this. So, you know, you come through with your plow in any one of these situations, and then somehow you're going to have to plow a berm of snow somewhere, right? If we've got 11-foot lane, then, you know, it's going to take up something. And so you got to stack the snow somewhere, depending on how big of an event. I don't know what it looks like, but for some temporary period of time, you've got to store snow somewhere. And then, you know, do you do the same thing with the sidewalk? Do you plow it to the same space? Do you plow it to the outside? You know, do you put it in this curb line and then overfilling it? So similarly, you know, you're probably plowing that way, or you're taking all of this and pushing it up on the sidewalk. Somehow all of that's got to happen. And then at some point in time, I guess, is where would you propose to put the snow during for a temporary haul or for a temporary storage location? Are there comments about where we might want to store it? If not there.
Is that me that you're asking?
I mean, anybody. I mean, I'm just trying to visualize how they are going to operate it, because this is going to take about 3 or 4 different pieces of equipment to pull the snow.
Yeah.
And I can walk through that with you.
Okay. Well, and if we need to move on, that's fine too. I don't know if that's what you're going to say, Joni.
No, thank you, Sean, and thank you, Emily. Yes, I was going to say, so we did receive this memo from Bike Anchorage, and we have spoken internally and did have a meeting with our traffic department and our project management engineering department. And we all, we need to weigh in with Brad, who's our new traffic engineer. But I've never seen an approval for anything smaller than a 13-foot center turn lane. So we certainly have not had that approved via our traffic department. So that would need to be checked in again with him. And we are recommending something similar to what was done on the northern portion for continuity. We're also concerned with that maintenance question about how would we maintain. It will be more difficult to maintain this type of section than what Sean showed earlier, because you would need a specialized piece of maintenance equipment, and we already are having issues trying to keep up with our maintenance. And then lastly, the reason being was for continuity. If you are coming up onto a section where it changes like this, maybe not in this particular scenario, but there was a concern with bicyclists feeling like they needed to go up onto the sidewalk at a certain point on the road versus just staying on the road. So I don't know if that applies to this section, but so for continuity, maintenance, and then right-of-way constraints and what's possible on this road, we are recommending with traffic and our project management and engineering section that we do a similar design to what was done on the northern portion. So just to be totally transparent and upfront about that, that is what we are moving forward with. But I mean, of course, we're glad that you're all looking at this, and I mean, it's obviously comments are still being given and taken into account. So, but just wanted to say that that's what we had discussed internally. I see Lindsay's got a hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to weigh in a little bit tongue-in-cheek. I put in the chat, let's just store the snow in the center turn lane in different sections of it, because ultimately we're making a decision to put the snow in pedestrian or bicycle right-of-ways, and so it's just a question we have to answer. And we always in these meetings, we get stuck at, oh, well, the right of way is too narrow. Oh, we're trying to make, these facilities accessible for everybody, but we know in the winter it doesn't work well for pedestrians. So I've said this to the team before. Any of these improvements or any of these options are going to be improvements along this section of Spenard. So it really just gets into those details, and I'm excited to see see this change happen. It took a really long time for the northern section to be updated, and I just want us to recognize that we do need a plan for snow storage, but we also have lots of recommendations, including within the non-motorized plan, to have buffered or protected bike lanes at certain speeds. And I will continue to advocate to reduce the speed on this section of Spenard Road, because it's the curviest section that we have. And if we can reduce the speed, then some of our concerns about having more protected bicycle or pedestrian facilities gets addressed in that without having to deal with right of way. So that's just another topic I wanted to raise.
Any other questions or comments for Sean?
I have a, excuse me, I have a comment. This is Matt. I'll be quick. So as, just as a general, let me back up for a sec. In our recent community council meeting, we were talking about the Spenard Road, the new improvements that are going in place there. And one of our officials made the comment that people are really excited about the road, and they're excited about the pedestrian and the bike facilities. And that made me very happy, because I can remember it wasn't too long ago that the default attitude in the community here in North Star area was, this is Alaska, nobody walks, nobody bikes. If you want to ride your bike, go on the bike trail. That's what it's there for. Go ride to your heart's content up and down the bike trail. And that was their answer. And even there was really, I personally experienced several instances of threats of physical violence because of my advocacy for this type of thing. And so now I think things have really changed, and the attitudes of a lot of people in our community have changed. And so that's the good news. I think we're moving in the right direction, and I'm very grateful for that, and I'm happy for that. So in a way, I say this sort of tongue in cheek. These are nice problems to have. We're talking about it, and we're going to figure it out. And I'm glad to see that progress being made. So thank you.
All right. Any other questions, comments for Sean? Oh, I see John has his hand up.
Yeah, just a comment. I mean, I push snow a lot for the Anchorage School District in our bus yard, and it really, and I get the need to be efficient. I do. But if the grader or the plow truck was driving just a little bit slower, blade a little bit more angled, he wouldn't be taking up all that bike lane. He or she would end up putting not quite so much into the bike lane, but more of a pile right about where that the white crossbar is with that little button there on top. So there is a way of working it, but it's hard. Depends on the load of snow. I get all of that, but they don't have to push quite so hard, especially when they know the community really wants this. It's just a comment.
Yeah, and we'll surely go back and talk to the maintenance section with the municipality of Anchorage. There's a lot of width to handle snow. Ultimately, it ends up being, one pass for the sidewalk, one pass for the protected bike lane behind a curb. If it's behind a curb, then, and then we're talking about a haul out operation, right behind it with another stream of equipment. Meanwhile, the municipality's got hundreds of miles.
And actually, I wasn't even advocating the protected bikeway. I mean, even if it's not protected, again, the plow guys could be aware that, yeah, there is a bike lane there. And if I'm not driving 35, but I'm doing 15, I'm not going to be pushing the snow into that bike lane as much. But I know that's a real nitpicky thing, and we got to get the snow out of here. So never mind. It's just a comment.
Yeah, no, these are great community conversations that we need to have, and, I anticipate having the same conversation on DOT roads. And, my response will be on some of those roads is tell me where to send the 7 plow trucks that are plowing between, the flats all the way to Indian, and they've got every single major roadway in the entire Anchorage area to maintain, and I've only got 7 plows. So, taking 3 pieces of equipment on one road and then a 4th and a 5th to then have to blow out the snow, I'm taking most of my fleet on one roadway, and I just can't do it. So
I hear you completely. I'm just,
yeah,
you're good.
Yeah, I mean, we would love to plow so much better, but both the municipality and the DOT, it just takes money, and that's where we're at.
Lindsay, do you have your hand up?
Oh, sorry. I'm done.
CB, I think you have your hand up.
I do. Sean, you said 7 plow trucks, which is not a lot, and I understand that. Can you tell me how many sidewalk plows there are? State?
I'm not sure. So we've got 14 operators in the covering the Anchorage area from Indian up to the border with Wasilla, Palmer. So we split that in half during winter operations. So we've got 7 operators at any one time, and so we've sold off all of our equipment that we just can't operate because we don't have enough people. And so, I would assume that we might have 2 or 3.
Yeah, no problem. I'm just
Yeah.
curious. I'm a walker and a bus rider, and sidewalks are something important to me. So I was just curious. Thank you.
Yeah. And we've got a priority system, that we're very transparent about, how we're prioritizing the system. It's the main highways. So it's Glen Highway, Seward Highway, Minnesota. Our goal is to plow those out within the first 12 hours. I think within the first 18 hours, we get to our tier 2s. And then I think like Diamond Boulevard might be a tier 3, which is within 24 hours. We're not talking about cleaning up all the snow. We're just talking about getting main travel lanes plowed.
Right.
And you get down into, Rabbit Creek Road. I think that might be a tier 4. That's within 48 hours. We don't have, we're literally turning off the street, the lights on Minnesota and the Glen Highway because we don't have any funding to even pay the electricity bills. And so, it's an impossible situation.
Sure. No, thanks. I was just curious.
Yeah.
All right. Any last question before we go to Craig's announcement? So Craig, should we get out our tissues?
No, it'll be fine. So just real quickly, I think most people probably read the article in the paper about our municipal city planning director, Michelle McNulty, taking a job as the city director of planning in Flagstaff, Arizona. And it'll be a loss not only for the city, but just for everyone in the planning department personally, because she's just been a great boss. But bottom line is I have been asked to take that position. So this will be my last BPAC meeting. I'll be moving on as the director of planning here for the city. The good thing is I'll be a member of the technical advisory committee, so I'll still be stuck in AMATS for a while. So We will hope to find a suitable replacement to take on the role of AMATS coordinator. We'll do that as quickly as we can. But yeah, I'm excited for the new opportunity and should be fun and interesting at the very least. It's a great department and it's a great group of employees there that I'll be really fortunate to work with. So,
Congrats, Greg.
Thank you, sir.
And this is Joni, and I just have to say, from the bottom of my heart, will miss you. I know you're not going to be far away, but you've literally been the best boss anyone could ever hope for. So thank you for 10 years of amazing bossiness.
I think you're welcome.
Yeah, I'm just kidding. Thank you for being an amazing boss, and thanks for all your commitment and dedication to AMATS. You really have made it the program that it is and the agency that it is, and we appreciate you.
I appreciate that. As I said, I'll be a member of the AMATS Technical Advisory Committee, so I'll still be hanging around, fortunately. Thanks, everybody. I appreciate it.
Congratulations, Craig. I'll get to work with you more probably on another level.
There we go.
So with that, we'll go to committee comments. Any comments from committee members? Anything you'd like to share?
I'll jump in. This is Matt again. And yeah, Craig, that's great news. And thank you for all your guidance here over the past few years. And when you mentioned that it was in the paper, the announcement of the other person moving to a new position, I grab my paper. I read the paper every day, ink on paper. And I see right here on the front page is a picture of Lindsay with connection to the city's proposed snow dump. So I didn't get a chance to read the paper this morning, too busy, but I'll read it this afternoon or this evening. So small world. Anyway, thank you, Craig, for everything.
You bet. My pleasure.
Any other comments? Committee comments?
Yeah, this is Lindsay. I just wanted to chime in, not about the snow dump, but happy to talk about it. Just one of the comments Joni had about the safety campaign. Every year, I think that we need to do a better job with public education, especially for folks in cars. And so I'm just hopeful that more public education awareness, these different kinds of social norms campaigns can happen. And so as you start to launch some of that education and outreach, please look to community partners to also help spread the word and get any of that kind of information out there. It's especially important now as we're in winter months, and we've talked a lot already about snow removal, snow storage, the need to clear sidewalks, and it's seems like it's been more difficult this year than in some of the more recent years to clear some of our most frequent use sidewalks. And so always just looking for ways to get the committee, to get the BPAC able to weigh in more on this and make sure that we can continue to advocate for this within our community. So just wanted to raise those couple things.
Thank you, Lindsay. Any other committee comments? Do we have any public comments? Any members of the public who would like to comment?
Can I say hello, Daryl Weddleton?
Yes, John. Hello. I saw you were joining us today.
I didn't want to just lurk. I wanted to say hi to everybody. I appreciate the conversation. I think several of you were there. I was on the inaugural group for this, the Bike Ped Advisory Committee, and it was a very lively group. And I'm glad sitting in to hear that the conversation is still very lively and persistent on, building for bicyclists and pedestrians and so on. And, I go to most of the Technical Advisory Committee meetings, and I sit on the AMATS Policy Committee, and we do pay attention to your comments. So don't be bashful. They're very much appreciated. Thanks.
Thanks, John. Thanks for joining us. I remember serving on the BPAC with you.
We did. I see
So-
Eric's there and others.
I just wondered, Joni and Craig, and for those who are joining us from DOT, as we learn more about this infrastructure funding and possible opportunities for funding bike and ped projects, I just hope the BPAC can be kept informed. And even if it means we have to have a special meeting or meetings, I think the committee would jump on the opportunity to comment or make recommendations regarding possible funding using some of the infrastructure money for bike and ped projects. So I just hope we as a committee can be kept informed as we learn more about the funding opportunities from the infrastructure program.
Sounds good.
Yep, sounds good, Daryl. My coworker Christine and I will be convening every Friday to spend a couple hours looking at new ways to try and access those funds. So, so we don't waste any dollars that are sent to Alaska. So but we'll keep you in the loop.
Thanks. Ever since that bill was signed, I've been going to sleep at night counting bike and ped projects in my head. So
Nice.
I appreciate that. Any other comments before we adjourn? Could we have a motion to adjourn, please?
This is Carol. Move to adjourn.
Do we have a second?
Yeah, this is Lindsay. I'll second.
Thank you, Lindsay. Any opposition to adjourning and enjoying our evening? Well, thank you all. Craig, it's been fun. Thank you so much. And
Absolutely.
good luck.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. All right. Bye,
Thank you.
everybody.
Have a good one.